Good afternoon. I haven't been in front for a really long time, thankfully. Ah, nice to see everybody's in the front of your faces this way. um, this week we have Thanksgiving happening on Thursday, so we won't have Dharma this Thursday. Please enjoy your Thanksgiving, however you all will be celebrating, if you celebrate. Some people do not. The other announcement that I would like to make is that we have Sita's higher ordination occurring on Saturday, December 2nd. We're so full of joy and delight with this auspicious occasion. It's been a coming, and now it's here. So, as a part of our offering as a sangha, we will be providing the food. So we have a full assembly of monastics coming for this, so at least 10. And then guests, as well as local sangha or others, I don't know, local sanghas as well as others coming for the ordination. We will have food. The offering of the food begins at 11 a.m. We will need to bring food prior to that, though, and there'll be more details coming around that. Thank you all.
Incense burning, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddhas smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. So who knows what the eighth fold path is? Nobody? What's the first one?
Right here. Right here.
Okay, what's next?
Right action? Right intention.
No. Intention.
Thought.
I think thought is intention, right?
Right effort. Right speech. Right speech. Right manager. Right livelihood.
We're trying to get to the last one. Okay. So where is right meditation? Where's right meditation?
Number 7.
Right view. It depends if you think mindfulness is meditation or there's more to meditation than just mindfulness.
Okay, so my right meditation is not there, is it? Okay, so that tells you something, doesn't it? That we might have a wrong understanding of what meditation is. It says right mindfulness, and in the suttas, mindfulness is always attached to something, so it's never alone as a factor of the path. It's always attached to something, and right meditation is not there at all. So when we start off and we think, well, Buddhism is about meditation, and we have to practice meditation, we're lost from the beginning.
Mm.
We're lost from the very beginning. So that's why we have to do our own research and our own scholar. Is this last week's water or what?
No.
Fresh. Okay, thank you. So we have to do our research to know what we're doing. Otherwise, we're following along blindly and wonder why, after 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we have not attained, or we start to think there is something wrong and we have to just practice. But it's not practice that makes perfect, it's perfect practice that makes perfect. So that means that we have to be willing to entertain some other way of seeing and knowing something than we always have if we want to have a different result. So in the Buddha's day and time, he studied, it is said, with the two greatest meditation masters or at least in his area, wherever you were in those days, that was your whole world, right? So there's not to say there was not something somewhere else, but where they were in that part of the country, those were the two greatest masters, meditation masters. And yet, at the conclusion of, or when he had mastered all they had to teach him, he said, I think there must be more. Because he realized that what he had received didn't bring him across the ocean of liberation. There was still something. There was not the nibbana that was promised. And so he went off and he studied on himself. Now, he studied many different methods, of practice to arrive at the perfect state of meditation. And he went on to teach those methods, and he taught different people different methods according to their capacity, according to their interest. Now, I want to say something about interest. It's not about trying to force somebody to see something a different way. If there's no interest, just keep on doing what you're doing. And I want to be really clear about that, so that there won't be any, confusion or idea that I'm trying to lay the axe to the root of your tree of understanding. So if what you're doing is working for you or taking you as far as you want to go, you just keep on with that. I'm only sharing with you the opportunity to go further if you want. There are some practices that lead to arhatship. There's some practices that lead to bodhisattvahood, and there's some that lead to Buddhahood. And what we have embarked upon here is the practice that leads to Buddhahood. Some aspects of that practice are the same as all the others because you have to have certain foundations, building step by step. Some are different in that they're not included in the arhatship practice. They come after that. So if one has attained arhatship, and and certainly if you have not attained it, then you have the option of attaining arhatship, and you will complete the path to Buddhahood somewhere else, some other time, maybe 1,000,000 years from now. But it's not to say that encountering the state of Buddhahood is not available to you now. It is available to you now. Usually there comes a sort of a split in the path between arhatship and the bodhisattva path. It's not a truly demarked shift. It's where people cut off their understanding and their willingness to add to something that they've already gotten a hold of. And that's what cuts them off from the path, but the path is not cut off to them. You understand what I mean and the difference. So one is free to go as far as they want to go. The path of arhatship is not Buddhahood. And Buddhas come to this world to awaken us to our what? Our arhat nature? Our Buddha nature. Yeah. I mean, so some of these things, it's easy for us to straighten out our minds if we want to. Now, where one gets cut off between attaining the Bodhi mind that leads to the stages, the bhumis of the bodhisattva path, which ultimately leads to Buddhahood, is the one-sided understanding of emptiness and the one-sided effort of emptiness, the emptiness of self. And so our hearts attain realization of the emptiness of self. Moving on to Buddhahood requires an understanding of the emptiness of all phenomena, of everything. And really, that's it. And if one is thinking rationally, there's nothing to even argue about with that. One can use their own human understanding or intellect to see to understand the difference. So what causes the conflict then is attachment, because it's very simple to understand a one-sided emptiness of self. And how we come to that is through analysis, and we start breaking down, dismantling, and we even see how we can dismantle ourselves, and so one can understand emptiness of self. But then one is confronted with the notion that everything around them is solid, therefore is touch not, taste not, handle not. And then we devolve into just the external aspects of rites, rituals, and rules. But when one can clearly see the emptiness of all phenomena, then if at the base of every phenomenal thing there is emptiness, it is empty of any intrinsic nature, then also everything that goes with everything is insubstantial as well. So that's how the disappearance, if you want to use that word, but I would say more how the understanding of and the liberation, the freedom comes in if all phenomena is is empty, or by its nature, its fundamental nature is emptiness, then that cures all of our defects as well. You see, it means, let me try to say it in a little better way, that if there is no, at the core of being, there is emptiness, then all of the effects and all of the results concerned with that phenomena, whether it's person or thing, is also empty. So then where would be the judgment? Where would be the karma? That means that karma is also what? Empty. And so this freedom that we're looking for is, and I'm trying to be as clear as I can, and you just have to be able to maybe ponder on it to catch it. We're not being freed as if we're locked in a cell and someone has the key and they open the door and they let us out. It's not that kind of freedom. It's like when this is, but when this isn't, this isn't. And so, so it makes no sense for us to carry around a heavy burden around cause and effect. We just need to simply understand cause and effect. When this is, that is. When this isn't, that isn't. Now, one who had the highest discriminating mind could wake up just from that statement. I'm not one of them, but I can see where it is leading. So you see this whole notion of the karmic load that we carry and what we're so afraid of is only effective to the extent that we understand that when this exists, karma exists. When this doesn't exist, karma does not exist. Now, that's it's hard for us to and maybe not even healthy for us to think this way until we're a certain place on the path. Otherwise, people just do whatever they want to do. That's where practice comes in. That practice, that perfect practice that makes perfect. It comes in when one has already learned or seen the results of unwholesome actions, unwholesome states, unwholesome thoughts, unwholesome speech, and they have abandoned that. When they have abandoned that, then they can take up, or they see the danger in that, then they can take up this path that where the yoke is easy and the burden is light. Because one's own heart and mind are constantly pressing in how to rectify even the slightest fault. So this practice that we do works in tandem with it helps us to understand emptiness, because there comes the dissolving of thoughts about ourselves. Right now, we're full of thoughts about ourselves. Good thoughts about ourselves. Some not so good thoughts about ourselves. We're always putting into examination whether we've been good or bad. Is this me? I think I was creating a disturbance. Okay. So whether we're always examining whether we've been good or bad. And this is a necessary part of the training, the practice. But at some point, one begins to get the gist of what is useful and beneficial and wholesome, and how it affects others, how what we do affects others. We surely don't want to live in a world where there's only us. And so this worldscape that we live in is necessary for us to be able to look at us, to look at ourselves and make decisions about what is for the good or benefit of myself. And if it's living with others, then it's how I treat others, how I relate to others, how I, show my affection for others, how I respect others, how, and in that process, one forgets about oneself. And then one does everything perfectly because one's mind is not constantly looking at what's good for me, what's best for me, how do I stand out, how do I, all of the things that make us us. And it's a gradual erosion of that. So one of the Buddha's disciples there's a story in the Majjhima Nikaya, and it talked about Ambata. Does anybody remember the story about Ambata? A few years ago, we did a skit, if anybody remembers the skit on Ambata. Anybody remember? Well, Ambata was the disciple of a sage of another, well, I'd say of another tradition, because the Buddha sort of was creating this as he went along. So don't worry when we're doing something different than what everybody else is doing. The Buddha did too. Okay, and all of the kind of meditations were all mixed up together. But he was trained by a great sage of that day, Ambata. And his teacher said, "What I know, now you know. What you know, I know." Saying he had reached the height of that training and had the highest insight. So he sent him to challenge the Buddha. And the first thing, they were of the, Ambata was of the Brahmin caste. And so when he saw the Buddha, he insulted him. He insulted him because of his disciples. He called them something like black lower than dogs because they were part of the untouchable, because he accepted untouchables. And I tell you the truth now, when on all my trips to India, I couldn't tell the difference. I mean, because I think some were fair. Yeah. And I'm like, well, how do you know who's untouchable versus who's a Brahmin? I mean, beyond they wear the string, But they were saying, well, when you're not sure, all you have to do is ask a few questions. And the few questions will tell you where they come from in India, and then you'll know by where they reside, whether they're in the higher caste or but the bottom line was those who were considered to be non-human, the Dalits, they call themselves now, which is children of God, the Dalits. They were not admitted they could go to the temples, but they weren't allowed to enter the temples because they felt that they would pollute the temples. And yet here's Buddha now welcoming them into whatever this thing is that he's teaching. So they're thinking this can't be right because he's let those non-humans, those lower than animals, be a part of this. So that's their mindset, you know. So he goes and he starts to challenge him. And in the process of challenging him, he, Ambata, realized the proficiency of the Buddha's Dharma. And when he was arguing with the Buddha would ask him questions because he knew he was sharp. And he said, answer me quickly now, because if you don't answer, an asura will come out and split you into 7 pieces, you know. So sometimes when I hear some of the things Buddha Master says, like one time he said to somebody, something, if I should have slapped him 7 times or something like that. And people are like horrified, you know. But you should really read some of the things that the Buddha said. You would think he's pretty good. And so at the end, Ambata came and he bowed to the Buddha. I don't think Ambata became his disciple, though. I think he went back because he was next in line to be the head of his own great show, you know. So if I'm wrong about that, I'll correct it next time. I'll check. But I think Ambata acknowledged that it was superior, but he stayed where he was. But it was very eye-opening for the Buddha's disciples, because you can say when you're in your own group, like, and everybody's thinking the same way, it's all good and it's all great. But when you're challenged by someone outside, that's where you have to really know where you stand. You have to really know what you understand. You have to really know your own mind. And we're coming up to that time as we're starting to share basically outside of the Sangha, and with notices in the magazines in the spring, Tricycle and Lions Roar, and sharing this Dharma. You have to know the Dharma that you're sharing. And when I say know it, I mean you have to know it through practice. This is the time that you're going to be challenged on how strong your resolve is. This is the time that you're going to be challenged to not be discouraged when you're rejected or called a heretic even. And so many times when the Buddha disciple was, when a Buddha's disciple was challenged and said, do you go on the faith of the Buddha, your teacher, that this is true, or that is so? And they would always say, no, we don't go on the faith of our teacher. He said, well, then what do you rely on? He said, we rely on knowing it directly for ourselves. And so this is where talk is going to separate you, you know, whether you can talk the talk or whether you can walk the walk. And it's in these ways one will be known and one will know themselves. So that's my introduction to meditation for today, is shifting and changing or correcting, because that's what Buddha Master said he came here to do, to correct some things that got twisted or lost over the centuries since Buddha walked, and one is an understanding about meditation and versus concentration. The concentration brings the clarity that allows the panya or prajna wisdom, to emerge and come to the forefront. So we're not just relaxing, letting go for a while. We're not just like tripping out, actually we're doing the opposite. And we're building the capacity for this kind of clear seeing, this kind of focus, and this kind of concentration. So one question that threw Ambata was how one could be concentrated and in thought if they were in meditation, because their kinds of meditations were just frou-frou, like just altered states. I guess I could liken it to when I used to drop acid. I was somewhere for sure, but I can't tell you much about it. Had no control over it. I just realized there's some places the mind can go, and you don't know what that is. You just go along for the ride. But it brought no clarity and very little usefulness. And I'm all for plant medicine for medicine. I'm not for plant medicine for tripping out and getting into altered states. That's my story right now, and I'm sticking to that. I think I'm on the losing end of that though, because it's getting really big in Buddhism, and that to me is just another sign of the Dharma ending age. I'm talking about prominent people who, that's where the money is. That's where people don't want to. They want the quick route and feel entitled to whatever. They want to buy enlightenment. And so once if you package it and buy it, then the only way you have it is if you keep buying it, and you have whatever you buy. But to become enlightened, one has to do the work to enter into that mind state. But once you do, nobody can take it from you. So Ambata and they engaged in a lot of activities that were not conducive to the mind expanding and developing this far-reaching capacity to see. And Buddha pointed that out to them. He says, like, what do your people do? And they talked about the things that they did. And most of it had to do with how they indulged in their waking life. There was a lot of indulgence. They were at the top of the pecking order of the social, the social system. And they enjoyed all the benefits of that. And it's one reason why so many in the Buddha's dispensation were able to awaken is because they didn't have those societal benefits. So people say, how fortunate it is to be born in the West, where we can freely engage in whatever spiritual practice we want, or we can freely indulge in it. They speak of our freedoms, but I'm not so sure that being born here, we do have some freedoms on a low level basis, but the greatest freedoms are hard for us to accept because of our privilege and our indulgences in worldly things. And so one really has to come. When I say to the end of it, I don't mean to giving up the things that we have, but how to make use of them. I don't mean that we walk away from everything and go live under the root of a tree and beg for our food every day. But that we know how see our true purpose in the world. And if we're on one hand trying to uproot our sense of self, we each decide what that really means and ways that we can walk in the world, not being attached to the things that we have, as these give us our sense of worth, our sense of value, our sense of importance. We have them because we have them. I used to like Cadillacs. Everybody was buying Mercedes in my group, So like if you didn't have back then you didn't have a Mercedes, like you didn't have a car. But I didn't like Mercedes. Mercedes feels like a truck. It's a hard ride. The seats aren't padded well. They're not roomy. The car is boxy. I'm sorry if you got a Mercedes. It's boxy, but I loved the Cadillac. It was big. It was roomy. It was comfortable. You go down the highway and you're like floating, So I had like the big car. But it's kind of like that, So I could have it because I could afford it. The problem is when you want it and you can't afford it, and then you start getting mad with other people because they have it, So it's not about externally what we have; it's about internally what our attachment or sense of pride in this life is tied to it. So they generally say that wealthy people don't talk about their money, and they don't talk about their money because then people will want it, But there's nothing wrong with having the best. That's what good fortune is. There's no way that you don't have it, except that you have laid the foundation for that to be in your life. So you can enjoy your good fortune, but just don't think it's your fortune. That's the difference. Thinking that is your fortune. And then you'll know how you look at people who have fame and fortune, like the movie stars, and how they dropping like flies, dying of overdoses, and I even saw a thing on a picture of what's that guy? I'm sure if I mention, maybe you'll know what his name is. Bezos, Jeff Bezos. And I saw a picture that has to be photoshopped. He's got rippling biceps, and he's sitting there with his new it's just that his wife or girlfriend, his new girlfriend, and he's like the macho man, So even with all he has, it's still not enough. Enough is what I'm saying. It's never going to be enough for you when one's idea or one's worth is based on who they think they are from a societal perspective. That is the ultimate freedom that you give yourself when you enter into the Dharma, the freedom from having to be anything for anybody in order to be okay. So the first thing is just getting to that place of being okay. And all of the instructions that he gives, he said, I give them softly sometimes, I give them harshly sometimes, I speak harshly and I speak softly, because I'm saying, pay attention. Right there is your hindrance. So when we hear things from the Buddha and we take it as being ridiculed or dogged out or pressed upon, that's where our mind is. Don't take it that way. Take it as a loving gesture, because it's right at that point where you take offense that if you can loosen that screw, that's where your freedom lies. You know, wherever we're free, we're already free. But it's where we're bound, you know, that takes something that feels uncomfortable when we get unplugged from that. That's scary to us. We start saying, like, what does this really mean? You know, when we mentioned the Bodhisattva vow, and it was like, yeah, I want to take the Bodhisattva vow. You know, what's the Bodhisattva vow? You know, and we read the words of Bodhisattva. That sounds good. I want that. I want to be that. Oh, that's who I am. You know, but then when we start having to do the practices that really require the selflessness or the giving up, like, hey, wait, I didn't really know all of this was involved in it. You know, and then we start like backing up a little bit from that commitment. So when you're going into meditation now, just think about that Bodhisattva vow, because you will enter extremely high states. And if you take those states as being something for oneself, then one will be caught up in a prideful delusion, and you'll never reach your goal. And that's why there's constantly, you know, with every step there's a caution. With every step there's a reminder. With every step there's an admonishment. So we should just get used to it. You know, we want to hear all the good parts, but we don't want any of the admonishment. But I tell you, as much admonishment as we're getting, that's because of the amount of the good parts that we are getting. The good parts, we kind of fluff over them. Yeah, that was delicious. That was great. But the admonishments, like, oh, they're really big to us. You know, but if we start to see that if the admonishment is really big, then we must have got something really good right there, and start looking for what that is. We have to look for it, because in our deluded state, our mind is not high enough. That's why it runs to the lowest point. It's why it's not vast enough. So it's cripplingly confining our mind. And so we're cherry picking, and we're bean counting, and we're, you know, all the things that a constricted mind does. You know, and that's how we know the level of our mind. So I was in a class yesterday, and the class was good, but there was a flavor to the class that was very binding, and I was looking for the difference, but because what that teacher does, I also do. You know, I'm constantly correcting. I'm constantly pointing out the danger. I'm constantly warning. And I really looked at it, and I want to say here and now that there is a lens through which correction has to be offered, delivered and received. There is a that does not cripple our effort and does not shut down our mind. So I just want to say to you that I will definitely endeavor to balance it in such a way that one sees the great spiritual profit to be gained, in the corrections, because this Dharma has the power to produce the promised results in us if we take it up. And I don't ever want that to be lost in any delivery of mine. In other words, I don't ever want to discourage you or make you think it's not possible. There's too many constrictions. There's too many restrictions. There's too many. I don't want you to ever feel like I'll never get it. I want you to actually feel like it is gettable and I'm going to get it. So this kind of fearlessness should be aroused. And so because of that, I'm going to look at my calendar very soon and I would like to give everyone the Mahamudra of liberation. The Buddha said that you didn't have to be a Buddhist to receive this, the Mahamudra of liberation. It was open to everyone who has a spiritual endeavor. And so I would like to give that. And the main reason that I want to give it to anyone who, it will take probably 4 hours. When you say, start a whole day, okay. So it'll take a whole day to get this. But the main reason I want to give it is because shortly after, I'd like to combine it with a yidam practice. And the yidam would be Salvanivarana Vishkabim, who bestows fearlessness. And I could see how important it is for us to have the support in cultivating and developing fearlessness on this walk. Otherwise, fear will get us. Fear of loss, fear of misunderstanding, fear of, on one hand we say seeing the danger in the slightest fault. But there's 2 ways to see the danger. One is with the kind of confidence that seeing it, I find my way of escape. The other is that seeing it, I'll never find the way out. Both of those involve seeing a fear or, having fear of the slightest fault. But one has a certain positivity to it that allows one to surmount and overcome, and the other is one that utterly debilitates, a person and feel like there's no hope, there's no answer. So it's important to have this kind of spiritual fearlessness. And I hope to do that, those 2 over the next couple of months. Okay, so we're going to go into a practice now for the rest of the session. And and because you don't have an introduction yet to the Mahamudra of liberation, I'm limited as to what we can do today because there needs to be some groundwork for stepping into it. Remember, that the Buddhist disciples said they didn't have faith in. Now, his arhats, let me back that up. His disciples had faith in his awakening. And that's where we start, right? But we don't stay there. His arhat said, no, we don't have faith in his awakening. We have faith in what we have directly apprehended. So this is the space that we have to get to, that we have faith in our own direct experience. Most of us are still relying upon, we believe what he said, we see some results in our life as we are putting some of these things into practice. But when we start talking about awakening, we start talking about actually seeing the true nature of reality from an inner view. We have to have our own insights, and so that's where we're headed now. So that comes when certain meditation has, I could say, has arrived, that we've entered into a certain mind state, a certain state of mind, and we view things through the lens of that state of mind. Now, you could say, even in a ordinary sense, when a person talks, you know where they are. And two people can be saying the same thing, but they're in two different places, and because there is a kind of power that comes with that which is born of direct realization. And that's all. That's where I'm trying to get you to, that place where one has their direct experiences of the nature of emptiness. And then when one has that realization, that direct apprehension, that direct insight into that nature, you can't get lost in the emptiness. One has to also see the materiality or the conventional presentness of that once they've glimpsed emptiness. If not, we sort of like go off. We can't function in the world because we have to have our feet in both places. Okay, so let's start, because where Mahamudra of liberation comes in is that's the correction that, and the Mahamudra of liberation, and there are different Mahamudras of liberation, some having more efficacy than others. But we're going to learn the one that the Buddha Master taught us, and we'll put it to the test, right? So it's and what he says is that this is really not a meditation practice. It is the springboard that allows us to be catapulted into meditation. So it's actually a concentration practice. And now when I was reading, like it just came to me this morning when I was studying and preparing for being in front of you, and I don't really prepare what to give you. I prepare me to be able to be receptive of something to offer you. So most times I don't know what that is. I don't know which way it's going to go, because it falls together, like as it rolls out. So it's like, Panwad, you prepare yourself and then I can use you. But if your head is fully your thoughts, then you're going to give them something, you know. So that's what I do. I follow my thread around what I need for me to be able to empty out of Panyawadi. That's how I prepare. So what came to me today was the eightfold path. And I said, oh, what would we be looking at the eightfold path for? And the question was, well, what are the eight aspects of the path? You know, and then like I was rattling them off, and today I'm not talking about taking them in order, you know, because we usually talk about they were given in a certain order. When you learn them out of order, or pick up some notion that there's something on the path that's not there, a factor that's not there, then you'll come away with the wrong conclusion. So we've come away with the wrong conclusion around meditation. But I tell you, as soon as we get that right, then it's like having the combination, you know, to a lock, you know, that third click and the lock opens. But if you one digit off, the lock is not going to open. You know, and so that's what made me think about you know, uprooting the notions around meditation. You know, and us wanting so much to do it is almost like a deflection, almost taking us away from being to encounter the truth, you know, by being lost in our fantasy of nothingness. And so that's the point today. It's not about the order in which you're taking them, but it's about it being right concentration, not meditation. I could say also that is the eighth aspect of the path, and it takes all of those other seven for one to be able to enter the eighth. And so that's why there's so much talk on views or right. He calls them uprooting evil and erroneous views. An evil view is one that will keep you away from ever coming to the knowledge of the truth. That's what an evil view is. It's not like a devil view that we think like somebody's coming in a red suit with a tail and pitchfork. It's evil because it means you will never, ever, ever get to your goal of knowing the truth. Erroneous means like you can get part of the way, you know, but you'll make mistakes. You'll go the long route. You know, that's what erroneous means. It's not really going to benefit you that much. But evil is that it will cut you off from ever coming to the knowledge of the truth. So, in the next few weeks, you'll hear more about evil and erroneous views. That's why I'm giving you the setup for that now, and the definition of the word for you now. And there, we have they've been compiled by Buddha Master into a list of 128, and we will talk about them. The purpose of uprooting them is to not be hindered. To not be hindered in your. When I first heard them, there were 6. I was definitely thinking that you're on the wrong train, buddy. That's you know, I was very, very steeped in a certain view and a certain teaching, and I clung tightly to that. But as I began to do other practices and my mind opened up, I began to see the fault or the danger in holding a certain view. So it's gradually over time. Every once in a while, I go through the 128, and I think I'm down to 2 now that I still struggle with. You know, so I'm not saying that you can't just say, okay, I accept 128 when you don't accept 128. It's just something to just keep chewing on and thinking about as you grow and as you and as you develop. And I guess if we never had any problems with any of the 128, we'd already be enlightened. So we necessarily will have difficulty, and we wouldn't know it if it wasn't pointed out to, oh, you need to think about that. Don't take it just from a surface glance. Go deeper with it. Go deeper with it. So that's the 128 evil and erroneous views. So I guess we'll try to get through 6 or 8 of them with each class, because we got to get through them. And we'll see where we are. So right now, I want to talk about in the Majjhima Nikaya, he talks about a pleasant abiding here and now, having set aside covetousness and grief for the world. And that means holding on to thoughts of value about things in the world. So our minds can be agitated by our thoughts about things in the world. Now I'm separating thoughts and I'm separating mind, because I'm going to be introducing a different mind than our critical thinking mind. And it's that mind that abides in emptiness. It's not internal or external. So right now, we're just using our ordinary mind, our critical thinking mind. But there comes a place where that drops off as we ascend. There is a mind that's being engaged, but it's not our ordinary critical thinking mind. So when he was talking to Ambada, he said, you have not discovered that mind. And that is the original mind. Ambada said, well, if it's not my mind, my critical thinking mind, if I drop that off, how can I think? And so it does propose a kind of paradox from our view looking up. But once you get there, you will understand. You will understand the activation that is of a mind that is outside of a consciousness that is not tied in with the 6 consciousnesses of our earth, air, fire, water body. So we won't be. There is a place. There is something. There is. To scratch the word place, there is something outside of our capacity to know things through our 6th sense gates. That's what I'm saying. And that's what we are trying to give the opportunity to come forth, that which is beyond the 6th sense gates. And we all know or have a feeling that there is something, otherwise nobody'd be sitting in here. We're just trying to figure out what is the way leading to it. How do we get to it? Is the whole thing. So if we go into a kind of meditation that causes us to lose our ordinary consciousness, and we don't know how to make that next step, it's sort of like this chasm of nothingness. So if we don't know how to leap across that chasm, we fall into the chasm. And that's what most of us call emptiness. But it's a kind of dead emptiness, a kind of nothingness. And a lot of times we think we're there because we experience a great sense of peace from the vicissitudes of life. but we know that we've crossed over the chasm when we can be in the throes of all the vicissitudes of life, and that peace is still there. It's not that all of those are obscured and we don't see them or we don't know them. It's that we can be very much in the throes of them, yet not affected by them, that we know that we've crossed the chasm. So he talks about there being a stopgap, and the mind has to shift. So this applied and sustained thought, that which is with applied and sustained thought, one enters into the first genre that's accompanied by piti and sukha. Applied and sustained thought, right? So if we're sitting quote meditate, and we're dropping into an empty space, where is the applied and sustained thought? Yeah. So there has to be something that's done then, and he calls it a shifting the mind practice. So when first we do have to come to a certain place of settledness, but that settledness is not a sleepy one. It's very alert. It's very alert, because it is concentrated. So anytime we're in a sleepy posture, when I say posture, I mean like mindset, we know we're nowhere near entering into the kind of rest that he's talking about, because this rest is a very confident, alert rest, almost like a hawk searching for its prey, and it can see from so far away, and it's not concerned about anything else. It's a kind of energy that's aroused. And if you don't experience that if you experience relaxation all the time in your meditation, then that's not it, But it's a vigilant kind of alertness without the hyper. So one's not hyper, but one is very focused, very intent, very clear, and very present. Okay, so here we are. And we're starting at the beginning. He says, setting aside covetousness and grief for the world. Now, I'm not trying to gain anything. I'm not trying to be anything. I don't, at this time, have a want for anything. Don't have a need for anything. One being in acceptance at the being recognizing that whatever is present, the causes exist for them to be present. So no need to have any aversion or trying to push anything away. No need to have any kind of trepidation or fear. You can let whatever arises arise. And then this way, when unexpected things happen or are said or are done, one doesn't feel like their program is messed up. One is just able to be with everything. Yeah. And there's a kind of ease that comes with that, giving up your plans and giving up. This is a way of giving up plans. Because plans are our greatest part of selfing. And just being able to be with what arises and what emerges in the moment without any fear of it, that it does anything to you, that it speaks to anything about you. And that's some of the great joy in pressing into this way, that one loses the fear of the next moment. I guess you could say that that's one of the greatest gifts of the Buddha way. That one loses fear, whatever fear you're holding. Abandon it now. And you can pick it up when this practice is over, but just for now, we're going to set it aside. I'm sorry I get soft necessarily when I get to this part. It's a kind of respect in the presence. I got an email from a student a couple of days ago because she's constantly challenged on why she has respect for Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Because they are their understanding of mindfulness is not full. Mindfulness of what? And because their practice doesn't really deal so much with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they consider that the Eastern baggage. And she's constantly trying to explain to them how her life is shifting as she has respect for the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And so I just say that if you divorce a teaching, from its roots, then it becomes a counterfeit teaching. And so much is available that you could receive that you completely miss. So right now, just thinking, the Shakyamuni Buddha wasn't the first Buddha. There's infinite numbers of Buddhas and infinite world systems. And he spoke of 5 in this world system. But most of us don't know about them. And because we don't know, we reject the possibility of their assistance that they're really here offering to help. So, sister, could you put that on now? So forgetting about this worldly concerns, even forgetting about ourselves. Let's just open up to the presence of the holy beings that are here to assist. And think of their wisdom as perfume. Their wisdom perfuming the air, helping us increase our own understanding.
The atmosphere is changing now. Your land beings have appeared.
They come by invitation.
The evidence is all around. Buddha's Bodhisattva's here. The atmosphere is changing now. Pure land beings have appeared. The evidence is all around. Buddha's Bodhisattva's here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Wisdom surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your grace. Your power surrounds us.
In the power of
We're the reason you came. Grant your blessings our name. Restore your mercies. The power of the eighth hour can empower us now. Restore your favor. Great holy beings, fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done, here as in heaven. Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us.
unison.
Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us.
Unison.
Your light surrounds us.
Sorry, this was a practice.
Your light surrounds us.
Then you start to break out. One person.
Your light surrounds us.
Your light.
Your light surrounds us. 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 Your light surrounds us.
Surrounds us.
Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us.
And maybe you have to do more chording in there
Your light
to help
surrounds
us with our voices, so that our voices maybe. Okay, so what I wanted to say is I wanted you to experience the difference between just nothingness and when there's a focus and a concentration around something. It has a kind of life to it that picks up. I'm sorry, that was a practice tape, but there's a definite difference in one's engagement. That's how the concentration, the focus begins to arise. And that's different than just sitting there like a bump on a log, wondering how much time has passed before I'm gonna open my eye and take a glance at the watch, you know. And so Buddha Master says, without this type of intense engagement with it, and if you could see, it takes a mounting up and actually a kind of arousal or entrance, moving towards something. And without that, it's dead and it's lifeless. It doesn't have to be on the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That is just one way of sweetening the mind so that to help allow other things to fall away, thoughts about other things to fall away. And it's useful until your mind knows where that place is. When your mind can go right there, you don't need anything. It's the minute you decide, I'm gonna, enter meditation, and then you sit there. As soon as you decide, your whole body is already infused with purpose, around that activity. And so that's the difference. If you cannot get there right now with nothing, I say find something that puts you, it puts you in the mood for focusing. It puts you in the mood for concentrating. Find something that you can listen to or that you can look at. It could be an image, a favorite statue that you have. Find something that you can turn your attention to that puts you in the mood for that kind of focus, above and beyond anything else that might be going on in your life. And as you tend to it, as you nurture it, as you cherish it, that's how you cut through the layers, and what substantial becomes insubstantial, and you'll begin, at least during that period of time, to see life as like a dream, like a bubble, like a mirage. Not saying that it is a dream, it is a bubble or a mirage, because we are really here, but like a dream, like a bubble, like a mirage. And that's when the mind will start to lift off from its tight attachment to the body. That's how you peel away, the attachment in that way, so that you can soar into these kinds of mental states that take you beyond the mundane and the ordinary. So practice finding, for this week, for the next couple of days, practice finding that which sets the right mood for you for dropping off. And like I say, it can be a song. I like that because I like the lyrics. I like what it portends, what it is telling us is coming. I'm seeing the atmosphere is changing it because I have invited the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas to be present with me. The evidence is all around because I feel the spaciousness already. I feel the light coming in to my space, and the words are just beautiful. They're just words that our choir wrote as we were trying to experience that moment, in our rehearsal, and our concentration shifted and became completely focused and absorbed in this idea that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. Then the 10 directions, this is one direction. They're in the 10 directions, so they are here present with us. And once I became aware of that in my mind, I became aware of that in my whole being, my mind, body, and suddenly there was the respect for their presence. you know. So we create that. It's not something that happens. We create it with a mind. So this is mind made, right? And when you think about it, everything that you do throughout the day or how you see it is a creation of your mind, how you see it. So this is a mind training. We're not disappearing and going somewhere, but we're training the mind how to hold every moment. What if every moment of your day you were aware of the presence of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas around you, rooting for you, you know, whispering, you hold your peace right now. When you're getting ready to get upset, saying, this is surmountable. Saying, you know, what if your mind went in that direction instead of, I got to handle this now and they're not going to get away with that. And what if you could hear them speaking the ways of peace and the way of escape in every situation? Because for every temptation, there is a way of escape. Would that change how you live your life? Would it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this is the sweetening of the mind, and it becomes respect. We have an issue with the word worship, but worship simply means ascribing worth to. That's all. Ascribing worth to something. What do you ascribe worth to? I'm closing now, but I read a short editorial, and he said, very short, I think 2 or 3 sentences instead of those long opinions, 2 or 3 sentences. And he said something like, it is not okay to commit atrocities on others, even if they have perpetrated them on you. It is not okay to kill 4,000 children in your anger or in your wrath. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. But something very simple like that, because we can lose our mind, literally, when things happen to us. If they're not resting in, it's like alphabet soup, the letters of the alphabet are the things that happen to us. And the soup is the environment in which our mind lives. And when those alphabets are in that soup, and it's a good soup, you know, then one can deal with them. And so we have to make the soup, the broth, by which all of our thoughts, you know, lie in. And your conclusions and your actions, you know, in spite of them, will be different. So now we're just making the broth. And pretty soon, our thoughts will be able to drop into that soup. And we will hold those thoughts differently. Doesn't mean that the pain is not there, but it means that we will develop the capacity to neutralize the pain. And when we develop a capacity to neutralize pain, then the world will be different, because we won't give out more pain tit for tat. 10 times as much. Whatever you do to me, I'm going to give it to you back tenfold. Those kinds of thoughts will not arise in our mind, because we have developed a kind of soup that can hold all of our thoughts and neutralize the evil and erroneous views. And when we're really carrying that around in us, then we will be able to help other people, who have that view. But it has to be real in us. It has to be genuine in us. So the best way we can help the world at this time, besides sending whatever, contributing in whatever, superficial ways that we can, is for us to develop this kind of mind, to make that spiritual broth that all of our thoughts can soak in. So this is what meditation is about. It's not about, being happier with our things, or even, to get us out of our troubles. We will get out of our troubles, and we'll stop making more troubles, but that's the byproduct. That's the fruit of the joy and the clarity and the true peace, inner peace that we will have. We will be fearless, because we abide in that kind of peace. So that's what we have to look forward to. And if you will give the next, 6 months to developing this step by step by step, your life will change forever. Could someone offer?
May we take our practice so that we may hear, not to listen, but to truly understand. So that we see, not through our own lens, but with the right view. May we have the virya, the effort, the right effort to see this through for ourselves and others. And may we have the joy and the attitude of not what must I give up, but what must I open up to truly receive this gift and share it with myself and with others. May we all be free.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Is it on?
Yeah.
I'd like to invite us all to offer up prayers for a monk named Geshe La. He's a teacher at the Sarabasti Abbey, which is north of Spokane in Washington. He's a 64-year-old man who spent 40 years practicing Buddhism, trained in India, Asia. He headed a group in Knoxville for a while. He taught at Emory University in Atlanta and was part of a monastery there. He recently became a teacher at Sarabasti Abbey, very advanced Buddhist. And on Tuesday, the 7th of this month, he disappeared. He did not show up for puja, which is an evening practice. It's known that he had a hat and coat and shoes on. He went for a walk. And this abbey is on 300 acres of woods and meadows. And he has still not been found. The sheriff and the police, all the rescue people have been looking for him. They've used drones and helicopters and dogs, horses. The people in the abbey, the nuns and the monks and all the local people are still looking for him. This abbey is close to Sandpoint and Coeur d'Alene. It's right on the edge of Washington. One person said she had seen a monk walking down this highway, but no cameras have picked up that image. And to this point, there's been no word. We don't know where he is. So I'd like to invite us to take a few moments to visualize the bodhisattvas surrounding him, knowing he has great training and the ability to do his Buddhist practices if he is able. So let's just take a few moments to see him rising to the highest of his ability in the care of the bodhisattvas and the Buddhas. Geshe La.
So Geshe La means, it's a term of endearment. It means beloved teacher, you know. But whoever she was describing, I read about it almost like a couple of weeks ago. And I was just thinking like maybe he just walked on away. But thank you for bringing that up today. Thank you.